want to say thank you again for being here. I know we kind of gave you short notice today, but I appreciate you showing up. The reason, my name is Kathy Ball. I'm the city manager for the city of Johnson City. The reason that we have asked you to come here today is to talk to you about the fact that we, as of today, around noon, we have filed an answer to what we're calling the Jane Doe lawsuits. So the city has, as you all know, on June the 21st, the city was sued in civil court by a number of Jane Does, and that was filed on June 21st, and we have filed an answer today. Before we get started, I want to say a little bit about, again, to the media outlets, I appreciate you being an avenue for us to be able to connect with the public. It is important, we feel it's important to be transparent. We will continue to do that with you all. And we appreciate the opportunity that this gives for the public to be able to hear and know what we're doing and what we're working on. Again, I know that it can be frustrating for folks to be able to be in a situation where there's a lawsuit going on. Up front, there's just a lot of information that we can't share. I will tell you with lawsuits, it is a challenge because not only is it in the middle of a process that often takes a long time to get through, it is also that information within these lawsuits is protected and sealed by the court. So in a lot of cases, we can't share information because it would not be legal for us to do so because it's protected information. So I know that there will be questions, and I just ask that you all be patient with me as we go through this. There are two things that, and again, in terms of encouraging patience, we do have some factual information that's out there, and I would encourage the public, I would encourage everyone to be aware of what we have that's information that's available to them to be able to look at this point. So typically, and I would say in any lawsuit, and most folks know this, we're using it as an opportunity, but a lawsuit is filed and that gets recorded, and then the defendant provides a response to that, and that becomes the answer to that. So oftentimes when there are folks who sue anybody in civil court, because it's just as a reminder, this is a civil lawsuit. So when people are sued in civil court, they allege things, it's their allegations, and then there's an opportunity for the defendant to reply and provide information that according to them is factual information. So I would always encourage folks and to understand we have put up on our website our response, what we call our answer to the lawsuit, so that folks have an opportunity to read that. All of that information is available. We feel like it's critical that people get all the factual information, and I know that it's not our nature to be patient, but there are facts in this case, there are facts in the cases that we have that need to go through a lawsuit, and there's just due diligence process that's required in order to make sure that all parties are served. So again, we ask for your patience in doing that. We also feel like it can be very harming if we have victims who feel like they can't come forward because of misinformation. That is the reason we want to be transparent. We want to come to you and provide information. It's because we want people to know that they can trust the Johnson City Police Department. We want them to know how we're handling especially in this case, sexual assault cases. And so we want to make that apparent to people. If there's one person that hears this message that comes forward and gets help that did not before, then we've accomplished what we need to with getting this information out. So again, I appreciate that. There are two items that are contained within our answer that we wanted to be able to speak to, that they're not the only two. We hired attorneys to be able to defend us, and under their obligation, their responsibility, and their oath, they are required to provide the best defense they can to the city. So as we talk through some of these, we will be very transparent about them, but we will try to make sure we're communicating correctly. The first thing that I wanted to mention is that when a lawsuit is filed, and in this case, the lawsuit was filed on June 21st, 2023. It is very common, and I would say uncommon, and I'm not aware of any case in which that lawsuit is not officially served to the city, to whoever it is, the named, the folks that are named in it, within a 5 to 7 day period. So it was filed in federal court. It was available. We knew it was available on that day. To date, we have not been served with that lawsuit. So that's an uncommon fact. It is within my understanding. I'm not an attorney. I'm here as the city manager of Johnson City, but that is very uncommon. We have taken a proactive approach on behalf of trying to expedite the process, the legal process for the victims, for the plaintiffs, for everybody concerned in providing an answer to this lawsuit. But I just want to point out that that is very unusual in us doing that before any person. We have not been served, but to my knowledge, none of the other named parties have been served in this case. The other thing that is a very, it's very important that we communicate to the public that when I mentioned that we have defense attorneys that are responsible for providing the best case possible for the city, they use all of the tools and all of the legal tools available to them. Within the lawsuit, the Jane Doe lawsuit as we refer to it, there are allegations that are made by Jane Doe's, and in that factual information that they provide, it indicates that they consumed and partook of illegal drugs during the course of that time period with the visit, and that is contained within the information that they provided in the lawsuit. So as part of the defense under a civil lawsuit, our attorneys are using comparative fault as a fact that is included within that. We recognize that doesn't, in and of itself, saying that they went to the apartments, they partook of illegal drugs. Admittedly, within the complaint, they have acknowledged this. Our attorneys in the civil lawsuit have listed that. If they do not list that, then throughout this lawsuit, they can never use that as a legitimate defense against this civil lawsuit. It's important for us to acknowledge that and also support the fact that our attorneys are responsible, obligated from an ethical standpoint to do that, and we're responsible as public servants to be able to take that recommendation and to be able to assert that within our claim. However, I want to point out very clearly, and it is really for us, we want to make sure the public understands this. There's a civil case against the city. There's the way our police department handles criminal cases. And in criminal cases, there is never any good reason that anybody deserves to be raped. And when people come forward and they have been raped or sexually assaulted, that is never a factor in terms of the police department investigating that charge without bias toward the person who is coming in, the victim. So that is important to note, because it can be very confusing. I don't think by walking out of here today that we're going to clear all of that up. What we have said, we will be transparent of that, and we understand that this is two different sides to a legal system. The criminal side, we are committed to serving the victims with compassion and care. We have great relationship with our district attorney and his office, and we are pursuing sexual assault cases in every way that we should. So I wanted to point that out to you. I wanted to come to you and say that that is in the findings and make the public aware of that information. I want to say that we, and I have said before, I have complete confidence in our Johnson City Police Department and their ability to do their job. They have continued, as you're aware, we received feedback that we've taken very constructively. We have been adding training components to the work that we're doing, the in-service training, and having additional training in order to improve the way we provide services to sexual assault victims. Just this week, General Finney put out a press release, and in that press release, they were able to get a conviction for someone for a sexual assault rapist, a conviction that was without parole. And the last part of that press release, General Finney stated, the Johnson City Police Department, especially the Criminal Investigation Division, was paramount in the quick apprehension and prosecution of defendant Bennett. So I use that as an example to point out that we will continue to serve this community. This community should have confidence in us. We will continue to serve this, but we will also be transparent in all that we do. And I'm happy at this point to answer any questions that I can.
What was the term that you used to describe the victims going to the apartment and partaking in the illicit drugs?
Comparative fault.
Can you explain that a little bit, what that is?
I am not an attorney, and I will tell you going into this, one of my fears is my role is to provide information, but based on the information that was provided, again, within the lawsuit itself, and again, I would encourage folks to read this. If you read through it, a number of the Jane Does that we do not know who they are at this point. They're listed and protected as Jane Does, but they do, within a lot of those information that was provided in that lawsuit, state that at Sean Williams' apartment they ingested illegal drugs as well as alcohol.
Since we haven't had a chance to read the answer, is there anything in there regarding the city's defense or rebuttal to the lawsuit that you want to expand on besides what we just asked?
You know, generally, I think that we wanted to point out those two, but I will tell you at this point, we've kind of said it is often very difficult to respond and to provide an answer with a lot of information when you don't know the names of the folks that are filing the complaint. And I understand that there's legal reasons, I'm sure, that folks do that, but at this point in time, they're all listed as Jane Does, and that information is protected. So a lot of our answers are around the fact that they are Jane Does, and we don't know the names of those individuals.
Is it reasonable for some of those that you would know, you could probably presume who they are based on reports that have been filed by them, though, with dates and circumstances and matching up within the lawsuit?
What is the question?
They may not have had their names in the lawsuit, but given Johnson Police records of rapes allegations being filed, that you would have an idea of who they are.
That would be pure speculation on our part, and we're not prepared to do that. This is a very serious issue. I will tell you that our hope is that the person who committed these the rapes, the violations, that they're held accountable. We are working very hard on two lawsuits at this point in time, but you know, the ultimate goal, and we would hope the ultimate focus would be on the person who committed the crimes. We know that the DA's office is doing a tremendous amount of work to be able to hold that person accountable. But at this point in time, we would not make allegations, make assumptions about any of the Jane Does based on that information.
When you say comparative fault, you know, a lot of our audience that's watching this right now are not familiar with the law like a lawyer is. But it almost sounds like maybe the victim is at fault. I'm just trying to understand what comparative fault means.
So in a civil lawsuit, you know, and I'm just, you know, again, I'm not an attorney. What I would say to you that as a city manager, they admittedly went there for a purpose and have admitted in the lawsuit that they said that. So, you know, I would suggest that you confer with an attorney about what that means, because I feel like it would not be helpful to the general public if I continue to try to expand on that. I think we can all read into it just by the words that are said and by the way I'm describing why we put that in the lawsuit. but I feel like continued explanation of it is not going to be helpful.
Can you say who you all have retained for legal defense?
Yes, I can provide you that information. I don't know that it's helpful for me to give that to you at this point. We have a legal team, and we can provide that information to you.
Can you provide an update on separately the investigation into the rape allegations against Sean Williams? And the devices that have been, according to a DA investigator, in the city's possession for 3 years, have those been inspected at this point? And if so, has anything been found on them?
So I think the first question is, can we say anything about the Sean Williams allegations that have been made and the investigation into those? After Sean Williams was arrested in North Carolina, we began working with the DA. As we move further into it, our chief of police, in conjunction with the DA, agreed that it would be best and most appropriate for the city of Johnson City to not be involved in those investigations, for the purpose of making sure the victims felt safe and that there was no any thought of harm done to them or any reason that they wouldn't come forward. So I am not able to update you on anything associated with that. I will say we have complete confidence in our DA. We know that they are diligently trying to pursue charges and to do the right thing and to work with victims of Sean Williams.
You said that the DA's office is leading this then, but there was a search warrant filed by the DA's investigator on Monday asking to search those devices. And then the next day, Johnson City Police investigator filed for a search warrant for Sean Williams and his DNA. Is it so? Was there a reason for the timing of that?
So, excuse me. So yes, at that point in time, after Sean Williams was arrested, both the city of Johnson City and the DA's office was notified that he had been arrested in North Carolina, and were working in conjunction with each other at that point in time. So the search warrants were done with them working together in doing that. As the investigation moved further along, for the integrity of the investigation, there was a decision made after that date that the city of Johnson City Police Department would not be involved in that investigation.
Are you able to tell us when that decision was made regarding JCPD's scaling back their involvement in that?
Generally, I would say in July.
Can you speak to, though, when you found out what's allegedly on the thumb drives that North Carolina recovered with the potentially 52 different women that have been victims? Just your thoughts on discovering that the numbers and the allegations and the potential crimes that have been committed.
I will tell you that I don't know that we have done a great job of educating the public in terms of how we get probable cause, how we access information in general. I think we could expand our education knowledge and probably in a lot of places to help folks understand when we have the right to get information, to gather information from someone, and what that probable cause looks like. I think that what you saw in the search warrant request for the computers was done after the information was obtained in Western Carolina, and so there was more information at that point in time. I was not here at the time that the computers were initially seized. What I can tell you is that our police department has to follow very strict guidelines when it comes to property rights, when it comes to the ability to pursue being able to access data, and the lawsuit will spell out whether, I think the findings of the lawsuit will spell out what was the appropriateness of when that should have happened, how that should have happened. My feelings are that it is implorable, impeccable, that we have someone who was in our community did these atrocious things that allegedly. So I think that for, if we were to look at the things we're united behind, we don't want a predator in our community that takes advantage of people, particularly sickening underage children. I have a 16-year-old daughter. It's horrifying. If you ask me how I feel, it's horrifying. If you ask me about the decisions that were made, I would say that we have a responsibility, a civic responsibility to everyone, and all of those details will need to come out in the future.
In the search warrant filed by the district attorney investigator for those devices that were in the possession of JCPD, the DA indicated that they did not appear to be searched or tampered with by JCPD. Can you speak to that at all? Is that accurate on the part of the DA investigator?
I cannot speak to it. I can speak to generally how we handle evidence, and I have a lot of confidence in the way we deal with evidence, and that was taken as evidence, and it was put in the evidence storage area, marked, signed. I trust the DA. I believe if the DA said it was not tampered with, I don't believe it was tampered with, or I think we would have heard otherwise.
When those devices were taken into Johnson City Police possession, it was because of the Michaela Evans fall. During that same time, in the time period, before and months around that, there were other rape allegations against Sean Williams. And the allegations were that they occurred in that apartment where there was video surveillance. Is there a reason that at the time there wasn't a search warrant to discover what was on those devices, or since when the rape kits came back? It happened in September 2020, where almost 3 years later. Is there of a reason why that was left there, or even investigating her fall?
I don't know if y'all can hear the question. The question is around understanding or knowing why those computers were not searched at that time because of rape allegations. Is that correct?
A series of rape allegations, and so the phones, the laptops, given that they are allegedly to have occurred in the same apartment where those devices had been, where there was surveillance, and where Michaela Evans fell out of that window, is there a reason that they were never searched?
Again, I will say I was not there at the time. Generally, what I would say to you again, and just in general, I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm not an attorney. There are facts of this case that are not out there yet. And it is so hard not to jump to conclusions about what happened and why decisions were made without having facts behind each of those situations. So I can't speak to what a victim said, what a victim felt, what happened, what the victim did during that time. I can't speak to that. I have to trust our judicial system to be able to bring that information out during the course of the lawsuit. I think it is a failure on the part of our community and a disservice to our community if we move to making assumptions and making allegations about things that should have happened based on incomplete information. And I think right now the picture that we have is incomplete. The things that have been reported for the most part are part of a lawsuit that was filed, not a part of the answer that was given. I think there is danger in terms of providing half information without the understanding there is more information to come that cannot be shared. So I don't want to say, did I know, did I not know? I was not there. I don't know 100%. What I do know is that I believe fundamentally we have to be strong enough, we have to be willing to wait for all of the information to come out. And that's what I would urge all of us to do. It is hard. I get that it's hard. It's hard for us. We have spent hours trying to make sure that we are transparent and that we provide information. But without complete information, we don't have all the information. The information is sealed from us. So I can't answer your question, and I am concerned that we continue to perpetuate leading answers to things that we don't have the truth to. And we're committed to the truth. We're committed to finding the truth. we're committed to making sure the person that did this gets what they deserve in terms of what they have done to people. And I so hope, if I had to say anything, that our focus of attention could solely be on that. I know that there are other reasons, but I will tell you that if any of us are frustrated, it's the fact that we have had, even our police department are so frustrated that we have had someone in our community that potentially has committed this level of atrocity.
Since we're here, the last time we were all in this room, we were speaking about the Daigle audit. Are there any updates you can provide regarding the implementation of the action items in that audit?
I can. So if you, and I know you remember, there's a number of action items associated with that. I will say that I just got a report from our captain of CID that listed the training that's occurred. We have had a number of different folks in the department take training. We have a lot of folks doing more in-service training at this point in time. We're working with ETSU Police Department to do some of that, as well as the Sheriff's Department, investigating other kinds of training that's available. We have money in the budget to update our reporting system. We're continuing to explore that and get that online. So, we committed every 6 months, if not sooner, to come back. I will tell you, I get regular updates weekly on what we're doing to implement the findings of that. And not only am I getting updates, proactively folks are coming forward and say, we think this is something else that can help us be able to do our job better. I want people to know, if they are victims of sexual assault, they can come to the Johnson City Police Department. If they feel like for any reason they can't right now, go to the DA. Go to the Washington County Sheriff's Department. We don't want you to feel alone. It is never okay for someone to be raped. Thank you.